we're flying by the seat of our pants.
Every damn day.
Yeah.
There is another. So there was a post that was made very recently on one of the groups where a guy has crossed an OGS to a 50% to more, 50% retic. And like, I already feel one kind of way about hybrids, as in like, to more to retic. But when you start going even further of half of that, and it like some of the animals were very obviously to more Python pattern influenced, but some of them, like there was one specific one in the clutch that kind of just looked like a really funky super dwarf, and it just made me think like, man, like this is kind of shitty, and this is getting into a really shady zone, because what if that animal gets passed on to somebody who isn't forthright about the breeding, and then all of a sudden this Timor blood's getting kind of like, mixed in there. I thought that might be something interesting to bring up.
Yeah, if something like that happened, that would be kind of shitty, I guess.
Well,
In terms of like that crossing, though, I mean, them being from the same family of snakes, like that's a hybrid that doesn't bother me as much as some other hybrids I guess I've seen.
Yeah, and you've got to think like it has to happen in the wild at some point. It has to. But in captive propagation, it just feels so wrong to go farther than just 50% crosses,
I mean, now that we're talking about it and we're recording, why don't we just jump into it? And
Yeah, I figured. I mean, who needs an intro when we start off like that?
Right. Let's talk about that. We were kind of going on talking about different topics we can bring up today, but Kagan, kind of the co-host of this TikTok segment that we're doing, just started us off with a hot topic, hybridization. I don't, whether you're just getting into retics or you've been breeding for years, the first place you want to visit is Stewart Design. More and more breeders keep showing up at shows, on Morph Market, and are all over social media. Sometimes it may feel possible to get anyone's attention. Stewart Designs helps small businesses like yours do big things through brand clarity, helping entrepreneurs to start and scale businesses that are easy to know and love. Their work can help any company or industry, but they've done a ton of work for ours. Stewart Design created the brands for USARK, Canova, Reach Out Reptiles, Coiled, and dozens of other well-known reptile breeders. Like many of us, the owner of Stewart Design, Blake, is a keeper and breeder who fell in love with retics through first working with Garrett Hartle. Although Stewart Design does a lot of corporate work, Blake has a passion for working with people in the reptile industry. Stewart Design can help if you're just getting started or you're ready to take things to the next level, you're struggling to stand out and build your presence online or at shows, you don't want to be like the other guys or get lost in the crowd, and you want to make your own way doing what you love. And also, you have big ideas and know your business is special, but you need help sharing it with the reptile community. If something here resonates with you, reach out to Blake and have a conversation. To learn more or get started, visit stewartdesignbrands.com or call them at 855-SD-LOGOS. Clear brands own markets. Stewart Design helps create them. If you are in the market for an enclosure for your reticulated python or any other one of your reptiles, Focus Cubed Habitats is your one-stop shop for not only the best-looking cages on the market, but also provide amazing features and add-ons to your cages. We partnered with Focus Cubed Habitats because they continue to innovate and change the way we house our animals unlike any other caging company out there. Their cages are designed intelligently and provide the most stylish and secure housing for your animals' comfort and well-being. Visit focuscubedhabitats.com for your animals' caging needs. Again, visit focuscubedhabitats.com for some amazing and stylish enclosures.
We also want to thank VivTech Products for being an affiliate sponsor of the Retic Lounge. Stop by VivTech Products for the best UV spectrum lighting on the market that will enhance and improve your snake's overall well-being and health. Visit VivTechProducts.com and use the code ReticLounge23 today for 15% off. Again, visit VivTechProducts.com and use our affiliate code ReticLounge23 today for 15% off.
Looking for the perfect accessories for your hatchlings or juvenile retics? Look no further than HeliGuy Serpents. Our sponsor, Chris Sexton, is coming in hot with an amazing 3D printer, creating top-notch perches and other caging accessories for your beloved pets. Enrich your retics environment with their high-quality products. Use our promo code TRL10 for a 10% discount on your purchase. Visit them today at HeliGuySerpents.com and start giving your pets the best. HeliGuy Serpents, the premier source for 3D printed caging accessories. Again, that's www.HeliGuySerpents.com and use our promo code TRL10 for 10% off all of your 3D printed accessories today.
Yeah, so like I'm not the biggest fan of hybrids. When it comes to like 50/50s, like I think they look cool. I'll never do it. But once we've already made the hybrids, like I why not go that step further and bring in morphs and try to do cool things that look different. I like the first pairing is the part that breaks like my like I don't even know if we want to call it ethical or anything like that, but like that's the first part that breaks what I wouldn't want to do or what I don't like doing. So at that point, why not just push it as far as we can go, I guess is my mindset. If we've already done it once. Now to your comment about, if it looks like a super dwarf and then it gets passed down to someone who doesn't know much and they're being misled. I would have to assume that Timors are way smaller than retics.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming the Timor is actually playing a role in downsizing what the end size potential is going to be, right? But then also, I think breeding hybrids is way harder than breeding retics. And like, if I was in that position, even if I was a shitty person, you're kind of getting less money if you sell it as like a super dwarf cross than you are getting it as a cross. Like it's a lot harder. I would rather my name be attached to a hybridization than trying to missell. I mean, there are people that could definitely do that. I'm just wondering like what that would.
Well, and you could just get people that, you get the situation of just the person can't handle that snake or whatever, and it just changes ownership a couple times, and not even with any malice, it gets labeled something else.
Mm-hmm. And a lot of times I've heard even that the hybrids end up being sterile in some way. Or in the case that I saw before, I saw a Retic berm cross that was attempted to be paired to multiple Retic females. But interestingly enough, those females never produced hybrid clutches when they actually all parthoed out, which was a really interesting thing to see, that pairing this male to them could kind of force them into a Parthogenesis clutch. I think the biggest thing I would be concerned about is not so much the 50% crosses, but when you take it that one step further and take the 50% to another pure Retic, and then you have 25% of whatever that hybrid ends up being. And then that kind of just ends up getting mishmashed in there. I know personally, for me as a consumer, I would definitely want to know. And I would be really upset if I ended up finding out that an animal that I purchased had that hybridization in there when I thought that I was buying a pure.
Yeah. I think that, and speaking about the infertile thing, we were just at Bill's, the Carpondros, males are infertile.
Yeah, you were talking about trying to get to a 75% Carpondro.
Yeah, I asked if anyone had ever gotten to a 75% or if Bill would try and do that. And he's like, well, that's a male, so I can't. He's infertile. So they've had no success with males, producing or siring any clutches. I'm sure it could be the opposite for females. I don't know. I forgot what he said, if someone had or not. But yeah, I guess I I guess I just don't see the motivation for someone to mislabel it if they're doing the breedings themselves, because it takes way more work to make hybrids and to continue the percentage of those hybrids than it does to just make a super door.
Yeah. Well, the pairing that I was seeing was an OGS to a 50%. Is it Timor or Timor? Timor?
Timor.
Timor. It was an OGS to a 50% Timor, 50% Retic, which would make the offspring Het OGS 25% Timor, 75% Retic. But those animals are now Het OGS. So if
cool as hell.
They look really neat. Honestly, I was.
I want to find them now.
I'll see if I can send you the picture. They were beautiful.
I mean, I think like, and that's where my curiosity has, like I said, not the biggest fan of hybrids. I don't judge the people who make them. Again, I think they look really cool, but not my thing. But that's where my interest peaks. It's like, now let's start seeing morphs applied to these hybrids. Like, that's cool. Yeah. I mean, like, so there was something I actually shared on our Discord on the Patreon. I shared a link that someone had just made blood python and ball python hybrids, and I know that that's a pretty common one that's been done, but there were some morphs in the mix, and one of the morphs looked pretty crazy on there, and it's crazy the genetic range of like there's one of them that had like a blood head, like that looked like a blood, and then there was one that literally just looked like a ball python, and actually that one was like the normal ball python morph. Like,
I have worked with those specifically, and I can tell you that they store up their crap just like blood pythons. They don't poop like ball pythons. No, they store it up, and then all at once they'll let it go.
No, thank you. Those are pretty cool, but I mean, it just goes to show just like, man, and again, this goes back to like the discussion that the Discord that's been hot about genes and genetics and what's passed to the offsprings as far as size and everything. I mean, you look just like you took a either a Borneo or a blood to a ball python, and you have animals that look just like ball pythons, and then you have animals that look just like bloods, and then you have the in between. And so that component plays I think we talk about potential length size when it comes to like the super dwarf and the mainlands and crossing them, and maybe
Did you see that picture?
Dumb of me to say. Yep, I saw that. Clutch. I think Nathan's trying to play around right now with getting it up on the screen. They look so fucking cool. So
the one in the bottom left really, I mean, that looks just like some of the, I saw a 43.75% Kalatoa Het Ocelot clutch. And that animal looks very similar to how those animals looked, with like the really small offset circular pattern on the dorsal stripe and just kind of like the chaotic nature of the pattern.
Right. That's like the only normal looking animal from the clutch. Dude, that one on the top left, that is
top
just
left
jet silver. Did we just like make an Anery Super Timor? So like was the Timor Het Anery?
Right. Who knows? I mean, that one was a 50% Timor, 50% Retic, so who knows what it had hidden in there. So I can definitely see like some pros and cons to having hybrids, because if you're hybridizing a Retic with a smaller animal, you're getting the look of a Retic, the personality of a Retic in a smaller package, which is pretty nice. If you're, I guess that cross would end up ultimately being about the same price as like a pure super dwarf or something. So I guess it's kind of like a toss up on between the two. But hybrids can also have really cool, unique patterns. Having that influence of that animal in there can definitely trick out what it looks like, and that can be really cool.
Yeah, the body structure, head structure.
Yeah, head structure can be really cool. Scale structure.
The price for the Super Timors that I was quoted at, they were $4,500.
Yeah.
So they're more than a super dwarf.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I mean, yeah, I mean, like the cons, like why for me, like just why. That's like my cons. Why. And the pros is they're cool. like they look cool. Like it's interesting that we can do that. But
I personally always thought that like a Retic ball hybrid would be pretty cool. I know I've seen like the berm ball hybrids.
at least like when it comes to like, again, just like ethics or morals, whatever it has to do when it comes to hybrids, at least Timors and Retics are both Malayo Python.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So again, that's, I'm speaking ignorantly, like cool, their scientific name starts with the same part, but maybe is it because they're
Same
partly
continent,
related,
like,
right?
It makes more sense.
Right.
It does.
Yeah. Instead of taking like a ball python found in freaking Africa,
Right.
you know, and skipping a rock several seas over to get to.
Well, and then a pretty arboreal snake to a ground dwelling snake. So I mean,
but they look cool, and I find them as like collectors, like for the people who end up buying them.
Yeah.
Yeah, like bat eaters look crazy.
Oh yeah.
Like they look so crazy and cool, but like also their eyes scare me. Like, I mean, do they not? They look insane.
They are insane.
I would
the
have
bat
to see
eater
one
that
in
I
person
dealt
to
with
see
was
if it's scarier than the Carpondro at Bill's. That thing just wants to, looks like it wants to eat all the time.
The carpet and Morelia head structures with those huge muscles, even though they're smaller, they just look deadly.
Beefy.
Always keeping it beefy.
Oh man.
You said you dealt with one before?
Yes, his name was William, and while his name is very gentlemanly, William was the farthest thing from a gentleman ever. He just wanted to eat and bang
around your neck.
Yes. No, he was the kind of animal that was just, you couldn't turn it off. Food response was always on. And so it was also just dangerous to put him in with a female because, he was always looking for any kind of movement. So,
Yeah, no
crazy
thanks.
guy. But he threw he made the females that he bred throw Partho clutches, which was really cool.
I'm wondering if that has to go back to like males being infertile, but like locking. And so there's me and Glenn McLeland were talking on the phone. I have a wild caught male Kalatoa that he sent me because he had to move to Florida. This is a male that's passed several hands. It's a male that, it was somewhere before Eric Lee, but Eric Lee had the male for a very long time. And tried breeding it out. And not sure if maybe one of the clutches, and Eric can comment on here if he wants to correct me. One of the clutches, maybe it threw a Partho. Garrett never got it to breed. And so I'm thinking like if females are susceptible and they make Parthos more often than others, like for example, my wild caught Kalatoa, she had a Partho last season, and I'm pretty sure my very first ever pairing with her was also a Partho based off of like comparing the two. And so like I'm wondering if you have an infertile male, like for people who want to maybe intentionally throw a Partho, if you have like gene stacked female, and if it's like a, I don't know, het Indo caramel, motley sunfire, and you throw a Partho, then you make visual Indo caramel, super sunfire motleys and super motleys. And so I'm wondering if that, like, if anyone's ever thought about like, oh, well, this male's infertile and this female's likely to lay, and then just do the pairings to encourage that.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Like, man, I'd really like to throw that male to my double het ocelot purple girl and just make.
Wait, was that on the phone with you? Were we talking about that?
We talked about it on one of the Discord Zoom meetings.
Oh, that's right. Okay. And that was probably after mine and Glen's conversation.
It had gotten brought up, and I was like, Lucas, you should totally throw him to females to see if they Partho out. And you were like, oh, snap, maybe I should.
I got boring females. I got locality females.
Aren't there problems with reproduction on Partho babies though?
No. So for example, one of the 2020 clutches of Solayers that was produced was from a Partho female to a wild caught male. She laid a great clutch. Or I wouldn't say it was a great clutch, but some of the babies survived. Brian Farley has one of them. Garrett Hartle, I think, held back two. Garrett Hartle has also bred a Partho female before with no issues.
Okay.
So I think from my observation on just my single clutch that like a bunch of babies hatched out and they were all females, it was a Partho clutch. I realized the ones that made it past 6 months are acting like any other retic I've ever produced, and all the other ones that didn't make it to 6 months, they died off and just didn't make it. And so I feel like if they make it to breeding age, but that's not like a scientific thing, or that's just me spitballing and just
Right.
thinking loosely. Someone probably has a lot more experience with that, but I do know that Partho females have bred several times.
So the Partho clutches I've seen have either been very apparent right from the get-go that they are going to be failure to thrive animals, or they've been very strong. So I saw a marble female Partho out, and she made super marbles. I think it was about 7 animals. Every single one of them ended up not making it. I want to say most of them didn't make it 2 weeks. And then one single one of them made it about 6 months and then just randomly, looked fantastic. I thought this animal was going to go the distance, was eating great, no problems with bowel movements. And then all of a sudden one day she was just dead in her enclosure. And I've also seen it was the animals ended up being all white albino, and some were just plain whites, and then some were super tigers. But I don't know if the fact that they were super tigers ended up having a play in the fact that they didn't thrive or not, because sometimes supers just have a little bit of issues in there. But yeah, it seems like they either are or are not going to thrive. There's no in between.
And do they throw mostly female clutches?
So a Partho clutch is. Are you asking if the babies would throw Partho?
Yeah.
That
No,
I don't know.
If most of the babies end up female from a Partho clutch.
That'd be cool.
So yeah, all the babies in a Partho clutch end up female. Ooh, one crazy thing that I did see, I've only ever seen this once, was I want to say the term for it is androgenesis, where it's the males genetics that get replicated and none of the females genetics are at play. That was very cool to see that.
Fun fact, and I consulted with several people about this, and I was told that it happened to Aubrey once and Shane once, but I bred that ocelot to that tiger, and she laid 25 eggs, 24 of them hatched, and the 25th one, when I cut the egg, that started going bad late in incubation and pulled out that baby. I sent the pictures over to Aubrey and to Shane and other people that, supposedly had experience like this male Partho thing. Now, suppose that, when I talked to the people who had experienced it before, they said it's typically only 1 or 2 eggs in the entire clutch that show the male's hormones. But the baby that I had cut and that died in the egg, it didn't have the color pigmentation, but it looked like a visual ocelot. It had the ocelot patterning.
Wow.
It was really cool. I can probably try to find up pictures on my phone and maybe attach it to that.
Oh, that's awesome.
That's crazy.
I'd really like to see that too.
I'm shocked that we're just hearing about that now.
No, Nathan, we talked about this.
Well, okay. Shitty memory strikes again. Maybe I need to hit my head harder.
No, I talked. I
unlock some of these memories.
I sent it on the Discord.
Okay, well, you know how bad I can be at the Discord.
That's true. But yeah, no, I as a matter of fact, probably before we get off this call later, I'll send it to you to refresh. But yeah, it was really freaking crazy and cool. But yeah, from my experience, again, just touching on the whole Partho thing. Now, Dr. Warren Booth has done extensive research on Parthos, and he informed me that lifespan of Parthos typically are less. But I don't know how much data, how much research. I don't know I simply just don't have more information on those findings, how many animals were studied and tracked, or but that was a statement he made that I found interesting.
That is interesting.
Be
I
cool to
wonder
get him
why.
on and talk about it sometime.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I think he said he was down.
I'm sure he would be. He's super accessible. He's a great guy.
Yeah, he's awesome. We can do a Parthogenesis episode. That'd be really cool.
That would be really cool.
Before we get too far away from it, just because you mentioned something, Kagan, about the super tigers. And I don't know if this got brought up on our Discord, but I know we all should have some experience with tigers at this point. Do you think tigers have a predisposition to be a little bit more feisty, snappy than the other snakes?
Yeah, so Lucas and I were just talking about this the other day on the phone because I was asking about his ocelot clutch, and I've definitely noticed that some, not all, but some tigers have, if you have a clutch of tigers and normals, it tends to be the tigers that are just a little bit more.
I like to say that because I have a couple tigers that kind of have that attitude, and my biggest one, I like to say that she thinks with her mouth before her brain, and then lets it all kind of come about after.
I mean, I think we've seen that in, so when you're first establishing a genetic from the wild, or trying to propagate it for the first time, we saw that in pieds a lot, right? When pieds were first coming in, that they were just kind of grumpy. They didn't really want to be handled. They didn't want to be messed with. They would buck a lot, pee a lot. They've definitely gotten a lot better, but
and there's still examples of it, even with some of the animals that are being bred.
Oh, for sure.
But yeah, they're getting way better.
They're definitely getting way better. Absolutely. But yeah, no, tigers can be a little snappy.
Yeah, I'm telling you, and I mean, Sean could vouch for this, because oftentimes if he's over before I even get home, I'll be like, yeah, just start working on the hatchling rack. And before it was nearly 100% of the tigers, and now there's only a few that they're warming up to us. But yeah, there was, so that clutched 24 animals, 17 of them were tigers.
Holy cow.
And out of those 17, almost every single one, I'd open up that tub, and even the first trials of offering food, and I'm wiggling it in front of their face, and I'm moving it and doing my little maneuvers, and all they're doing is just mouth wide open, just mouth gaped open, looking at me, head cocked back in that S shape.
But the normals.
But yeah, no, I don't think a normal did it. Maybe once or twice, but no, the normals would actually strike and would actually be like, no, get the hell away from me. These were just literally open mouth trying to run away from you. When they struck at you, they wouldn't clamp. They would just hit you and then back off, and and
I notice a lot of my tiger hatchlings, when you go to do that and they do that open mouth thing, they'll also focus their attention not on the prey item in the tongs, but your
face, your eyes. They're looking at my eyes 100%. It's almost like a cobra thing. Seriously. And yeah, I mean, it was funny trying to get some of them established to eat, because it just the entire time, I literally was at that point, I was trying to aim the head down the back of their throat while they kept their mouth open. I was just like, come on, please. I was trying to just jam it in there. Please bite it.
Well, honestly, so just on a little aside, one of the best ways to get a really stubborn feeder to take a prey item, if they're known for dropping, is to get them to clamp onto the head of the prey item, specifically the nose face area. Because if they're already on that nose, they'll just kind of keep working from there. But if you offer that rat and they bite the shoulder, they're more likely to drop and then get disoriented, confused, and then wander the enclosure, not knowing where the prey item is.
I have my granite back clutch that I have right now. They'll do that, but then as I'm closing, they'll let go because they get startled. And I do the same thing, but I'll offer them the second, if they let go of it with their mouth and the tub is still open and they're wrapped, I just offer the other one. And that way it's they don't miss because they're already wrapped around the other one. So I definitely make sure that I put the head right into
Oh, yeah.
that mouth area. Nathan, did you have any drop feeders?
So I have one right now that for whatever reason only wants live at the moment, and so yeah, he's not tongue feeding, you're just drop feeding. And then as far as the frozen thawed stuff, I have one that's dropping its food, but I mean, even if you get it head first, it's not always wanting it, so that one's been a little tricky.
Is drop feeding referred to something that
So whenever you've said drop feeding to me, I just assume that you're talking about dropping the food item into the tub and letting the snake find it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I guess that's so I guess when I say drop feed, like when I have a drop feeder, is typically they'll eat, they'll wrap, and they'll drop their meal and leave it.
Oh, okay. Yeah. I
But
have
that
one.
makes yours makes more sense.
Yeah, I have one right now. Oh. No, I think this is a one-time thing, and I think it just needed to poop and shed. But I had one that I was feeding on live, killed the live, and then dropped it. But I think next week will be fine.
Savage. It's like, leave me alone. I'm trying to shed, and just kills it and doesn't eat it. So I see it, dude.
Oh, man.
Just murdered it. Poor thing.
Do you so when you guys feed, do you offer the prey item on tongs and get them to bite and constrict and then like shake and wiggle? Or do you, I know Nathan, you'd said you gently place one of the prey items in one of the enclosures. How do you guys tend to kind of do that?
That's just with live. I wiggle and then let them bite, constrict, and then if they have a really strong food response, and I know that snake's pretty likely to just bite and eat, I'll just let it go. But if it's a more troublesome feeder, I'll let them constrict a little bit more and wiggle it after they start constricting.
I've been trying and kind of experimenting with something with my animals, which is when I offer them a prey item, unless it's like a animal that kind of has the tendency to drop, where they kind of need that more stimulation to wrap and then want to eat, I'll typically just very gently hand it to them and not shake at all. And it seems like it is reducing their prey drive, like their want to just smash the glass and go really ham. I think
I'll
it
give
has
that a shot, because the one, it does seem like an exciteness, like kind of a response. Because you open up the cage and it's ready to strike again, ready to take another.
I have my, so like the ones that I have that are like they drop their prey and stuff, I have like a special color tape that I tape on the outside of them, and I leave them to feed last.
Yeah.
So that I'm out of the way. So that I'm not continuing going through the rack. But typically when I have hatchlings, I'm always wiggling after and just kind of stimulating just to kind of get them to squeeze harder. And but no, that's about the only time that I do that. After they've taken a few meals, I stopped doing that. I mean, with my bigger animals, they typically lunge out the cage, and just me basically picking them up and throwing them back in the, well, I set them back in their cage. I feel like that's stimulating, like the animals moving them.
Right. I'm kind of torn between it though, because like on one hand, I listening to that one episode that you guys did on enrichment, feeding absolutely is an enriching experience for an animal, and it's like it's their favorite thing to do. They love to eat. So
unless you're a ball python.
Well, I don't know, man. Mine smash. Like every single one of mine is on it. They don't even need it at like 98 degrees. They room temperature, A-okay.
As long as it's not frozen, we're good to go.
Yeah.
No, I get that.
So like I'm kind of torn between it, because like on one hand, I want to, provide these animals with a little bit of extra enrichment in their day, things that get them excited feeding. On the other hand, it's like, man, if I have a really, really fearsome animal that is excited about food, maybe I just want to lessen that a little bit and just gently try and get them to change the way that they behave with food.
Yeah, I mean, totally. And again, like on the topic of enrichment, feeding's not the only way. So you don't have to, for those animals, it makes sense not to use feeding as the form of enrichment, but something else.
That's a great little segue into our next topic, which is seeing animals' behaviors change now that we're kind of entering into breeding season.
Don't you love how like she's got everything organized and me and you just like we've winged this so many times that we're just like I love it.
It reminds me of a show I watch. It's kind of funny. But
No, don't listen. The first interview that Lucas and I did, he was like, "Are you ready?" And I'm like, "Lucas, I have 15 pages of notes.
Ridiculous.
They're handwritten.
I thought she was joking, and then she looked at her notebook and she started flipping through pages. I was like, "Oh, okay."
Oh, but no, it's been a really, I want to just say, a delightful experience for me to have my collection, right? And my collection is starting to come into breeding age. And so for the first time, I'm seeing these animals start to express behaviors that they wouldn't normally have just because their hormones are starting to come up and you know, they're wanting to breed. So specifically, I have a female that I've had her since she was about hatchling age, always popped female. I've never once thought that, you know, anything other than the fact that she was female. But all of a sudden, this breeding season, she started arching. And I don't mean just like a regular female arching. I mean like male arching, just all over the enclosure. Every time you touch her,
Like
she would
back touching the ceiling type of thing.
yes, back to the ceiling, just whole body. And so I saw her doing that. And it was actually when I offered her food once, she started arching for the first time like that. And I was like, what is getting into you? I ended up ordering a probe kit for the first time, just so I could know beyond a shadow of a doubt that she was female. And it turns out, yes, she is. And I have seen females exhibit that kind of behavior before, just not to that extreme. So it was really, really interesting just to see how extreme her behavior was with that, you know.
Have you ever had a female do that before, Nathan?
my anery will almost do that, like halfway do that when she's getting really close to cycling. She's getting to the point right now where, you know, she's getting touchier by the day, and she's definitely like throwing like bucks that are, you know, a foot high when you're trying to get her out. But
My ternate female's doing that.
it's fun. It's fun. But no, once you get her out and really get her moving, she's generally okay. It's just, you know, she doesn't want it at this time of the year. She wants food and to be left alone.
Yep.
My ternate female is the first year that she's cycling, and she's like 4, almost 4.5, and she is one that has a feeding response to no end. Like she's she's not even close to my largest retic, but she's one that Sean knows you don't ever touch her without me being there, because she's someone who you can turn her food response. She's fine and dandy. You can be holding her for 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes. And then all of a sudden we'll just wrap your arm, turn around, and you know that you better have something in between you and her head. But last time I opened up her enclosure, like nothing was just laying there. I was almost like, is she dead? And then when I touched her,
she has the exact opposite response when cycling.
No. Well, then when I touched her, it was the first time that she just like, she hit that hook so hard it smacked the top of her cage, and I was like, oh shit. And so I like put my hand in there to grab her, and she's bucking off my hand, and I'm not worried about her biting me at this point, because again, like I know food response, and she's never been defensive. And so like she was bucking my hand, and then I decided to kind of tickle her back a little bit, and she started like raising her back up like an arch. And and then when I finally got her out and I put her in her tub to soak, as I was cleaning her enclosure and I opened up the tub, I saw just a centralized huge swelling. And I was like, oh, okay, so you're cycling. And just so happens that me and Sean were feeding the snakes, and I just thawed one out for her. And I went to go feed her and saw that she was in shed. I was like, oh, this is a good sign. I mean, she had that swelling, and now she's going into a shed.
Yeah.
And I went to go offer her the rat, and like it took a lot of persistence for her to finally take it. But I think that might be her last meal.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, as far as like seeing a female do it, I mean, they'll always buck, but I've never seen a female ever like, I've never doubted like, oh, this looks like male behavior.
Yeah.
Now, have y'all ever had, like, when a female's acting touchy like this, steal a hook from you with one of their bucks?
Oh,
like
dude.
completely take the hook into their enclosure?
Yeah.
That's always fun too.
Yeah.
No, I've
Have
had
backups, kids.
I've had an instance where a female has smacked my hand to the top of the enclosure so hard, I was like, dang, did she fracture something? Like this really hurts.
Yeah.
Especially
That
when
must
they
have
get
been a
like
big
16
girl.
foot. Oh yeah, no, for sure. No,
So,
and they get like 16
have
foot
you
plus,
noticed-
they got some weight behind them.
Have you noticed a big difference in terms of just, I don't know, animal behavior, being that it's your own collection and not a giant collection now?
Yeah, so that's kind of the really exciting part is that so before
I thought she was going to say, that's my other note that it was on here.
Hey, I asked a good question. Thank God.
No, so before, I was dealing with so many animals that it would just kind of get lost in the masses. You're not really focusing and prioritizing one singular one or a group of 20. You're looking at, or I was looking at, way too many. So now that I have this really specific collection and I'm getting to know the animals, it's in a lot of ways really invigorated the passion again, because it's like, wow, I get to learn you as an individual and find out exactly what makes you tick. And now I'm learning the things that you do very specifically that you do in your time of year and breeding behavior. So I have one female. She's always been a little snippety snappity, but typically once you turn her food response off and bring her out, she calms down. It's not the case where she's going to turn around and decide that she wants to bite you again. Actually all of a sudden in like the last month or so, she is just on it all the time. Like it doesn't matter. I actually had to put newspaper over the front of her enclosure today because I finished cleaning her enclosure, got her back in, and she was just pop in the glass. And I was just like, man, you're gonna hurt your face. Like there's so much spittle on this freshly cleaned glass, ma'am.
You know what
Yeah.
you should do? Feed her.
Feed her. Oh yeah, no, I have a rabbit thawing in the other room now because I was like, okay, well the only way to calm you down is to literally thaw you a meal. And she's one of the ones that I would, one of the few that I would like to actually purposefully breed this year. So, which, with everything going on, I've definitely drastically changed my breeding plans after kind of just like the state and climate of the retic industry and really wanting to avoid overproduction and everything. I've really taken a step back and said, okay, well, what pairings do I really purposefully want to aim towards, and which ones can I forego, And I have an animal now that I had originally wanted to breed this year, but now I'm just like, you know what? I don't need to breed her this year. She can take the year off.
That's how I feel about my Philippine. I was wanting to make a pure Philippine clutch, but I'm selling a pure Philippine and Philippine tribal clutch. And, I was kind of bumping up her feeding a little bit, but I was like, you know what, let me just punt the brakes. Even though she doesn't have a big clutch.
Yeah.
Because they lay huge eggs. I mean, last year, I think she laid only 12 eggs. And she hasn't really gained any size from last year to this year. But yeah, I mean, it going back to like the behavior and observation, it's really cool to see the differences and when you pay attention. Because I can imagine when you're doing it for a shit ton of animals, it's just basically like the only thing you're paying attention to is feeding.
Yeah.
For the most part. But like, yeah, I mean, that's one of my favorite things. It's like, I have one snake that'll always completely go off of food. I have another snake that has like that pre-ovulation shed and then has like one or two more meals. That's my Kaiwati. And then she goes off. And then my Philippine does not go off of food, but like you can see the follicular swell. So that's, I know I have to look at her body for when she's ready. And that was what it was like for my Solaire. She had just had a big meal. And then I offered her a little bit smaller of a meal and she ate, but then like my males were just going crazy above her. And I was like, you know what, let me just put in a male in her enclosure. And he was just going absolute nuts. And then he locked with her for like 2 straight days of off and on locking, and then was on the opposite side of the enclosure for 3-4 days. I took him out. I tried putting him back in opposite side of the enclosure, and then she just blew up. And so it was literally perfect timing.
He's like,
bro, my job is done.
Yeah, he's like,
Bro,
I'm confident.
First time
I
breeder.
don't need to be here again.
I didn't miss.
I know what I got.
That was his first time being with a thick woman. Like he was like, she is huge and he is so small. And that was the first time he was ever with a female, and he got it done like this.
He's like, you don't think I got that Michael Phelps in me?
Right.
That's really awesome that like that's the first time. So it's funny that you bring that up, because I'm trying to get my normal het ocelot, het mocha, pos het anthrax male to breed this season, right? And so I've been doing really gentle introductions to females with him, females with him, to kind of gauge how receptive he is. And like the first time I paired it, or I put him in with a girl, he was kind of like, what do I do? I'm a little scared. Ended up hiding in the corner. The second time he was like, ooh, okay. Started arching around, kind of getting his groove on. And then this most recent time, so it's the third time, I put him in with my Sunfire double het anthrax albino or mocha female. And he started like lining his tail up with hers, really like pushing her around, kind of getting in the groove. But it was really funny because he was kind of, getting their vents lined up, and he was like, I was like, okay, dude, what and then he just all of a sudden averted his hemipenes, ejected sperm plugs, and then it was like he got mad about it, right? And then he just like, and then slung his tail, and all of a sudden there's sperm plugs on the other side of the enclosure, and I'm like, okay, well, you know what? Some guys have that problem. It's okay, buddy.
Typical male response. Typical male response.
Men, we are not that far from being retics.
You saw Lucas double over. You saw me nodding my head.
I was just thinking in my head, like that sounds like the perfect.
React.
That sounds like the perfect like virgins having sex for the first time, and like just the tip, and then just like.
Oh no!
Sorry.
But it's in complete contrast to my other male, who is actually a little older than him. This guy is like, he's in his enclosure and he's like smelling the females above and below him that are getting ready to cycle. And he's like, ooh, okay. So he's pushing. Now all of a sudden I wake up one day and his mouth is all puffed up. And I'm like, okay, dude, well, let me introduce you to a female. This is what you want, right? And he goes in and he's like, I don't know. I'm scared. And then he just, he goes over like he's interested, and then she'll do like one very gentle, like little shrug. And he's like, okay, I won't do it anymore. I'm sorry. It's like, okay, mister.
This is where we welcome our new sponsor. If you have ED, please go to hims.com.
This is precisely why we mark not for kids on YouTube. Right here.
So Nathan, I feel like I know most of Lucas's intended pairings. What are yours?
Well, I mean, I keep my collection extremely small.
You used to just say small, but now that you saw mine, you added the word extremely in front of it.
Extremely small.
Damn it.
Yeah. I mean, come over, Lucas. You'll see. I mean, you can see behind me. It's what you got. I have 3 females that are breeding age. I have an 87.5% tiger from Daniel Solis, Kalatoa. I still don't think I'm going to breed her. She's starting to get good size to her, but she's just stayed incredibly small. So I think I'm going to give her until about 6 years old until I pair her. And then the 2 girls that I'm planning to breed this year are both 75% Kalatoa, 12.5% Jampea. my purple head anery girl again.
Is that the one from Richard?
No, that one's from Eric Lee. That was my first animal.
Okay.
She will probably be bred to one of her offspring from 2 years ago. A golden child platinum, sun tiger het snow.
Nice.
Yeah,
I really like platinum and anery together.
Oh yeah, Theron Lance got one of the best platinum aneries from that clutch. It was like green.
Mm-hmm.
When they have the green, because I've also seen some older platinum aneries that end up just looking silver and like a faint yellow, and like you can see that the platinum gets washed out with age. But the ones that have a lot of green to it only like enhances.
I almost bought that animal back, but I just wasn't in the position to when he was getting rid of it.
How old are your females, Nathan?
8 years old on the purple, 7 years old on the anery, and then, or maybe I'm off by a year. It might be 7, 6, and 5 on those three girls that I just listed.
Nice. Does it seem like, I think I've heard this before, that super dwarf animals tend to be a little older when they first cycle than mainlands? Is that right?
From everything I've heard and like anecdotal evidence from like Lucas breeding that ocelot male, yeah, it seems like you can get the males to go a lot faster.
It's insane.
Females, it sounds like you can get to go faster, but I only have experience with the super dwarf stuff. So I've been told 4 years, and that's when I first attempted my first pairing was 4 years, and her body structure was looking good. She was developing, some decent like fat, I guess, not fat, but just tone that you want to see in that midsection when you're starting to pair.
Oh yeah.
I can so like my Kayuwadi had some, like she was starting to kind of get that like maturity size to her at around 3.5, getting a little thick. And so I tried, and the male was tickling up on her, but she was never receptive. And so I pumped it back, and then I tried again about like 6-8 months later after she was 4. And she ended up
Didn't
breeding.
I even tell you back then, like just from all the advice I was getting, I was like, Lucas, she's too young. She's too young.
I mean, yeah, I was just, I wanted to give it a shot.
I get it. I did that with a couple of my first ball pythons. I just wanted to see what happened.
I was
if I put them
excited.
together.
I
You
mean,
miss all the shots you don't take, Nathan, or the ones you end up on the wall with.
I agree.
or you know what? I'm going to tell you what I told one of my clients today. I told them, I was like, we talk to ourselves more than we talk to anyone else, and you listen to yourself more than you listen to anyone else. So I was listening to myself. So be nice to yourself, people. Okay, so yeah, no, and then when I bred her at 4.5, now mainlands definitely females can breed at 3.5 and stuff like that. Like, but also I feel like people have pushed their mainlands way more than they pushed like a pure super dwarf. I'm wondering how it would work for a cross, right? Right now I'm pretty damn sure my 50% Kalatoa motley, Henry Motley, is gonna cycle, and she is like 3 years, 8 months right now, or something along those lines. So I'm pretty sure she's getting close to the tail end of like when she's going to get off of food. She has been looking bigger in her back third, and she's going to be paired to the Ghost. So hopefully we get some 25% Kalatoa and the good old 6.25% Jampea Motley double het Ghost Snow or Blizzard or
one step
White
closer
Walkers
to the Ghost Thraxolot.
The Ghost Thraxolot. Yeah. I told Nathan we can call it the Ghost Thraxolotl, and you get a free axolotl if you buy one. But yeah, that's one of my pairings I'm most excited for. And even though it's only 25%, you got to start somewhere.
Are those the ones that you wanted to call stormtroopers?
No, that's the tiger ocelot.
Oh, that's right. Okay.
Didn't Jay already call one of his animals stormtroopers?
If it wasn't the tiger ocelot, then it's irrelevant.
Yeah.
Google tiger ocelot reticulated python. You're going to come up with a picture that has 2 snakes on there. The one on the left is a sunfire ocelot. The one on the right is a tiger ocelot. And tell me that doesn't look like a freaking stormtrooper, okay? But yeah, I mean that was the second one that I was most excited for. The first one I just got the eggs from, which was pure Solayers. I've told many people in the past, if I like complete had a bust for every single pairing but my Solayers went, it would be my like most memorable season yet. So hopefully these eggs survive.
Congratulations again. It's incredibly fantastic that you managed to get those animals to breed and produce a healthy clutch. I don't want to say managed to get them to, because you know what? You did a lot of things right with that clutch. You very specifically...
Hold on. Okay. There's the stormtrooper on the right.
I was able to share one picture throughout this, but it's
right throughout the whole thing.
Because it's going through browser, I need to fiddle around a little bit more with the stuff I have saved to my computer.
Not a fan of the Sunfire, but that tiger is phenomenal.
Yeah, no, I wasn't a fan of the Sunfire.
Stormtrooper to me needs to be more black and white.
It's the only thing not black and white's the head.
Well, hey, let it age a little bit and see how it develops.
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of green on that animal.
Jay is hiding a lot. He's got to have Ocelot and Kodam combos and stuff off the yin yang. Oh, what happened? Oh, there we go. Okay,
I got it. Don't you worry your little heart.
It has to be symmetrical. I gotta go back to drawing my squares.
StreamYard defaulted to the big one that likes to cover all our stuff. I made it pretty again.
Yeah, I mean, but I was gonna say, Kagan, I don't think you're off that. Like, I managed to do it because I got that female like 4 months ago.
Well,
so what's
yeah, but
cool...
from the moment you got that animal, you said, okay, I'm gonna change the conditions in which I'm attempting to breed this animal.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So I mean, okay, I have heard from several people. I don't know how accurate this is, but there's a question that I can ask that would kind of maybe back up maybe some of the people's statements as valid. That Solayers have been known to be difficult to make a pure Solayer clutch. We've seen crosses before. We've seen female Solayers breed to, mainland morphs and things like that. But for some reason, they were popping, and probably one of the more popular ones back in 2011, 2012. Nice. Oh, Nathan. But then, no one was able to produce them, or that we saw for a while. There was 2 clutches in 2022, but I tried looking online before that. Nowhere to be found, but they have egg-bound issues. They've had, Chris McVicker had tried, and Aubrey tried with the same female, and she would slug out. And so, I automatically, when I think that like a retic is or a locality or whatever, it's like not breeding well, my first thought goes back to like a statement I've always said, which was retics are kept too hot. So I decided this year for breeding season, I was going to drop the temperatures more. Like last year, I had my garage like 83, 84. This year, I had my garage more at like 81, 82-ish, and then peaking up to 83, maybe touching 84. And so from the time I got her, up until when she laid her eggs, my garage temperature average was 82.6, I believe. And whenever
you were to guess, and I said 82.5.
Yeah, you were 0.1 off. So the cooler temperatures, I think, definitely helped her. And this is a female who has bred twice before, good clutches, and she breeds every 3 years. She had her first clutch at 7, second clutch at 10, and I got her, and she had her third clutch at 13. And so she laid 32 eggs, 8 slugs, and 24 beautiful eggs. And that was one of the things that I really honed in and paid attention on, was let's try to drop these temps. And that started with, like, you look at Solayer Island and you look at the average temperatures there, and they don't even get to like the mid 50s often. Like, it's typically in the lower 80s and then dropping down to 78 at night. At night, I would let it get into like 79 at times, 80. Probably my nighttime low average was probably the low 80s, like 80.4 or 5. And what's crazy is I was talking, or I was thinking about it, and then we talked about it on the phone, is what if Solaire females cannot, like, they can breed with other morphs and stuff, like, and we've seen that happen. I was like, wait, like, we always have an emphasis as breeders to think about female, right?
Right.
Like, we're always thinking about what we did right or wrong with the female, and then males were just like, meh, like, males are males, right? They arch and they're good breeders. But, like, what if males with a hot spot of 88, or even like people that, you know, a lot of people are still keeping their retics at a 90 hotspot without a big enough enclosure. What if the males are just overheating and they're
And your
leading
sperm
to
goes sterile.
right? And
Yeah.
so
That's a really
I mean,
interesting point.
it could have been advantageous for the male
The
to keep
old
it cool.
laptop on the lap theory.
Right, exactly. My mama told me never wear briefs too many days in a row. So it's actually quite fascinating, and I can't say if it was even my temperatures. Maybe this whole thing about Solaire's being hard to breed is not accurate. But then you got to ask, like, if they were one of the more common localities out there, where did they all like? Why don't we see more of them? Why, like, me as a locality nerd, I can't find more than 2 unrelated lines. So
Jason Peacock produced a clutch, right?
first clutch ever over in the UK.
Did you talk to him at all?
Not yet, but he did. He messaged me and said congrats. So I meant
It'd
to,
be
but
interesting to compare notes, see what worked for him, what worked for you, that kind of thing.
yeah. But I was very interested to see that the egg weight size of the eggs, they were a little bit more than I thought they would be, but pretty close to ternate size eggs. Basically around the same, anywhere between 180 and 200 grams. I think the heaviest one was like 201 or 204 grams, and the lightest one was 180.
170.
170? Oh, I did have that one at once. Actually, that was the only egg that I think I've marked. I did mark the 170. And so, yeah, I just found that was very interesting. And again, it goes back to, I genuinely think we keep retics too hot. And that's why I don't ever foresee myself doing this unless I have to. But I don't ever want to go back to gradient style heating again.
No.
Lucas, I held this question off until the show, but how was the female pulling off her eggs?
Yeah. Did you catch her when she was like exhausted, or did you wait so she was a little spicy?
First off, I'll never wait intentionally until she was spicy. I
don't know if you couldn't get there because of work or something. You know, sometimes
I'm very
life
vanilla.
presents us.
Okay, I don't live on the edge. Okay. But I was lucky enough that happened to be a day where I got to go into work at noon because I had no clients before because I'm transitioning into a new job. And so I got to see her start laying. Long-winded, but I'll answer your question, Nathan. So, like, I went out to go eat breakfast with my wife and my daughter, and before I left the house, she wasn't laying. Literally an hour later when we got done, I looked at the camera before heading home, and she had like already like 15 eggs laid. I was like, whoa, like this snake just started pushing them out. And that makes sense because for 4 days straight, she was working it, just slithering her coils, like pushing everything down. I almost, it was only day 36 that she laid. So I knew we had plenty of time for me to be worried about egg bound, but I was like, why is she moving so much?
That video that you posted of her moving the eggs down her body was so cool.
I love seeing that. That's my favorite part.
Awesome.
I love seeing that, and then seeing you with your daughter actually catching one of the eggs being laid was, I mean, top notch.
She's so cute.
And I mean, part of the reason I ask about the egg pulling is when I was over there, and kind of everyone's worst fear with where she was at was she was up on that shelf.
Yeah, yeah. So she, I fortunately, got home. My last client canceled. So I was like, I'm out, like went home because she was done. I could see her on the camera. And fortunately I got to her only about 2.5 hours. She was done. She was already fully coiled with her head facing the glass. So I was like, oh my gosh. So I pull the first glass thing off. I pull the second glass panel, the door off. I set them aside with the door open. I get all the egg boxes, like, and everything ready. And then I grab my hook and I just tap her head. And she turns her head away from me and she's looking against me. And then I try just like barely going under her. She, of course, is bucking. She turns her head back at me and I'm just using my hook. And it was probably the second easiest egg pull I've ever done.
That's awesome.
Congrats, because I know you were.
I was
on
nervous
edge
as
about
hell,
that
dude.
one.
She's a
Yeah.
big ass girl.
Yeah, she's not a small snake. So no, and
And I'm still
not
new
in
at
the
this,
greatest
guys.
position. Yeah.
And she was on the shelf and I was worried that she was going to, catch herself at the top of the shelf. But see, another thing about, I got this enclosure for her, a bigger enclosure, 2 feet tall. If she laid on the shelf of one of the 18-inch enclosures that I had, that would have been, I would have had no clearance. But that extra 6 inches did a lot. That's what she said.
I'm so happy that Kagan cracked before I did.
That you like how I paused after I said that extra 6 inches. So yeah, it was the easiest. Like one of the easiest. The egg pull that was easier than hers was the Philippine the year before.
Again, a shout out to our sponsors tonight.
Right here, if you have ED.
Lucas, you better start reaching out. We're giving free plugs.
It's okay to be average. Oh, that's good.
Oh man. So I have a question for you then. With your altering of, the lowering of the temperatures for the ambient in the snake room, are you also altering any of the incubation temperatures, lowering them at all for the eggs?
I'm going lower this year by like half a degree.
Mhm.
Not because of that, but because I spoke to Paul Lucas and I've heard about this many times and I figured I'd try it. My ratios male
Eric
to
Lee even talked about it.
yeah, my ratios male to female are usually a little bit more female heavy, but lower temperatures. From what we've talked about with Paul, and I've talked to Eric about it and other people, it sometimes ends up a little more female heavy. So I was like, why not? Like, I wouldn't mind a female heavy Solera clutch. We need more pure Soleras out there, and females is definitely the start because we need them to be alive to lay eggs. And so we'll see how it works. But I also know that it's going to be tough because I haven't bred long enough to where I'm not at the point where I put eggs in the incubator and when they hatch, they hatch. And so now we're looking at maybe 90 days of incubating versus what I'm used to, which is like 84. So right now my temperature are before they were in between 87.5 and 88. Now I'm doing 86.5 to 87. So a degree lower.
This is going to be the best New Year's ever.
Dude, that's when her expected lay date is.
That's awesome.
Or hatch date. Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, that would be really freaking sweet. I had my my first Kalatoa clutch laid on Christmas Day.
Lucas,
How
do
many
you
days?
feel? Oh, go ahead.
How many days did the Kalatoa clutch incubate for?
That was a Partho clutch, and that was a clutch that I actually cut at day 82 because the eggs were sinking. They were looking like crap, and I just wanted to make sure all good was in there. So I was going on vacation for like a week. So I was like, you know what? Let me just like cut a little sliver in here and hope, that way none drown in the egg, whatever the case may be. And also because some of the eggs were looking like shit. But that whole clutch was a nightmare. If we want to talk about like locality and like a good healthy clutch, my Coyotes clutch last year, they pipped on their own at day 84.
Okay. Nathan, what about your clutch? Your Phantom Tiger clutch?
So that one was a little bit weird. I would have to look back and see how many days it took for her to lay, but it was
55.
It was in the 50s for
Yeah.
sure. So it was too long for her to lay her clutch, and then
I thought she was a boa. I thought she was just going to do the whole thing herself.
yeah, and then they hatched on day 79.
Okay. Because I've always heard that
But I
dwarf
had some
incubator
weird
sucks.
fluctuations with my igloo incubator this year that I didn't have the first time. So I think that played a part in some of it.
If you
Yeah.
look at the link below, we have a link to Nathan's GoFundMe for a good incubator. And
We need to be serious about that at this point.
dude, that igloo was causing me way too much stress, man.
Hmm.
The igloo incubator, the first year, I'd wake up every night. Like my wife would wake me up. She's like, the incubator's beeping, and I'd hear the thermostat beep, beep. So it pissed me off. And then the second year, I got it set up. I put my Kalatoa clutch, the one that actually did well. I put it in there. I put it in the incubator. Within the first week, I was doing the same thing. I literally like put together an old type of fridge. I went and bought one for $75. Did the heat tape, got fans. Didn't even give a shit about giving it a like. I let it like get set for one day and put my egg box in there, and that thing is still upstairs, bulletproof. If I need another incubator, like that.
That's almost what I'm gonna be doing at this point. I mean,
they're amazing.
Yeah, it seems like a really solid way to go.
Also, fun fact is that when you have a fridge like that, like an old school fridge, they're way better than like the PVC manufacturer, like the sea serpents or the one
It's
that
just
I got.
insulated a lot better. PVC isn't a great insulator.
Yeah, my temperatures are always going to fluctuate depending on the ambient in my garage, like 0.4 degrees within a day. That freezer was like 0.1 degree fluctuation the entire damn time. And when I opened up that door and I closed it, got back to temperature like that, I need to find a way to get it in my garage.
I have extra heat tape laying around. I really do just need to start browsing the classifieds. I just, haven't. I've been wanting to buy a fancy one, So I think I just need to change my mentality a little bit for this upcoming season because I don't want to run that igloo again.
Just keep your eye on Facebook Marketplace and look for either the little wine coolers, or if somebody is selling, what I ended up buying is an old Coke cooler.
Yeah.
Like the full stand-up one, glass door and everything. That's what I use. I love that.
That's what I'm going to look for, something kind of medium size.
Mm-hmm.
So Bill runs his, and you know how we talked with him. Yeah, it was a Gatorade one, and you know how Green Tree
he had
Python
two.
makes.
He had a Gatorade, and I looked at the other one. I wish I remembered the brand.
Was it like a
Maybe it
Monster?
was Snapple or something
Oh,
like that.
it was Snapple. Something like that. But yeah, he's been running those for years and years and years. And dude, once you set them up, man, I almost wonder.
That kind of got me changing my mentality of, okay, I have to go buy a hot box or have to buy a Wilbanks or what have you,
I almost thought about pulling the trigger on a Wilbanks, and then I kept like my stomach was telling, like my gut was just like, bro, you built an incubator in like 2 hours and it's like bulletproof. So for I think a total of like 125, and I could probably hold like 200 super dwarf eggs in there.
Jeez.
Yeah.
All right, you're gonna see a lot of Discord talk coming up here shortly.
Right.
When Nate pulls a fridge in the back of his truck home.
I threw my back out.
For a cause, though.
Just don't hit your funny bone, please.
God.
Too soon.
Every time I go into that bathroom at work now, I look at the corner of the shelf I hit, and I'm just like, all right, no raising our arms in here.
Watch me.
I rode my bike into work today, and so of course I had my helmet on, and I walk in and I'm like, I think this is just going to be work attire from here on out.
That's good. How far into your bike ride did you think of that joke?
I mean, as soon as I put my helmet on.
Now it's just like, damn, how can I execute this well? Yeah, so you guys got anything else for tonight?
Okay, we can either go one of a few ways. We can
Which page are we on first off?
Page 4.
Okay.
We can either delve into how the industry views percentages of dwarf and super dwarf animals, which this was a little bit of a hot topic on the Discord.
I'm
lately.
not ready for this one.
No,
yet.
Not ready for that one?
no,
Okay.
me and Nathan are actually going to potentially make this a whole episode.
Okay.
Like I think Lucas and I agree more than we think we do.
Mhm.
Yeah.
But we do have a couple little differences for sure. So
I think that's probably better. I think it does deserve its own full episode.
Yeah, because it literally is it's a good back and forth, and what I told Nathan on the phone even is just whether it's what
on the
should
phone, you were too busy to pick up and were leaving me 5-minute voice memos.
That was in between clients, dude. I didn't want to have a phone call when I had a client.
I'm just kidding. Shit.
but yeah, I was sending him like phone call long voice memos. I think that where me and Nathan's similarities lie is that there's just a lot of gray area.
Mhm.
And we both see the gray area. But like the fundamental thoughts are just opposite.
Yeah.
So I think it would be for a good episode because I really think that the Retic community can learn a thing or two, not about that topic, but about how to have a healthy disagreement and be able to still give each other high fives after.
I like it. I like it. As long as you bring up your interest in calling 75% the new standard for calling something a super dwarf.
See,
I
and
actually really like
that's
that.
where I get a little lost. I'm not quite there yet.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In my experiences with animals I've bred, I'm not quite there.
Yeah. There's a lot to unpack on that topic.
Oh, yeah.
And Nathan and I,
I mean, I was about to get antagonistic and pull out my 50% Kalatoa, 18%.
All right. Well, let me
18.75%
rip that
champagne.
page out.
you don't want me to pull out my like 11 and a half foot 50% Kalatoa that's 3.5 years old.
I know, and that was why I sent my buddies 75% Kalatoa platinum. That's huge. I mean, we're
the
No,
platinum.
we're not getting into it. We're not getting. Yeah, platinum is huge in the first place.
Right.
Yeah, so that plays a role too that a lot of people don't think of. But
I mean, the girl I was about to pull out has platinum in her.
Yeah. What's up, Kitty? That's Nathan's cat, always making an appearance.
He's sad that I'm not paying attention to him.
Yeah. Okay, so we're on page 4 out of what?
4 of 4.
4 of 4. Okay, so then let's go to the other topic and let's wrap up on that.
Or
Yeah.
mites.
Oh,
Would
mites.
we like to bring up mites?
Mites. Okay, we can bring
Yeah,
up
we
mites.
need to cover that.
Yeah, mites was something that is something that I am finishing. I'm on the tail end of treating. First and foremost, if any of you come at me because I have mites, I will fight you till the death. But no, seriously, like why are mites stigmatized? First of all, like why are mites seen as such this terrible like when you have to treat them, it sucks. But like, I feel like people get judged really harshly and negatively if they end up with a mite outbreak.
They absolutely do. I mean, there's this huge stigma behind having mites equals, well, your husbandry must just be shit and you're not doing everything you can to keep your animals clean and whatever. No, man, mites can happen whenever you go to a show, whenever you have a friend over that has snakes, if you get an animal in the mail, you know, it's like your friend could send you a snake, and let's say that your friend doesn't have mites, but maybe they reused a shipping box that did have mites in it before. That's a way to get mites. I mean, it's just
now your friend has mites.
right. Now your friend has mites.
It's really the crabs of the reptile industry.
Look at him, he's hugging you. Oh my goodness.
That's a
That
loving cat.
That
But
is a
yeah.
loving
He's
cat.
ridiculous. He was a bottle baby, so he's just the most needy thing in the world.
So I this is the first time that I have had mites with with my collection the size that it is now, I've only dealt with it once before when I received a snake and it got to the rest of my collection when I had like 8 animals.
Mhm.
And so that was a very easy, like non-stressful thing. But now that I got hatchlings and I have like its breeding season, I panicked. And again, not panicked because mites are going to kill my snakes. No, but it's a lot of freaking work when you have a lot of animals. And on top of that, I have animals in my rack right now that people have purchased.
Mm-hmm.
And I like one thing in my gut. So like, here's where I think like we shouldn't judge people if they have mites, but here's where I think like the judgment is we can start to ask some questions on why people are doing things is when you have mites knowingly and you send out animals without telling the buyer that you have mites.
Mhm.
That's where it starts to become a little shady.
Right.
Right. So I'll give an example. Angela, or not Angela, Kagan, sorry. Kagan bought a normal female het ocelot pos het endocarmal from me. I found out I had mites. I let her know immediately. I said, none of them are on that animal, but let me get things a little more under control. She said, if they're not on them, we can still she's like, I have a good quarantine space. And obviously Kagan has dealt with, she has plenty of experience. So she obviously, I mean, you can speak to this. It didn't seem like it was a deal breaker for you to send the animal one way.
You had mentioned it and I was like, you know what, man, I've got the quarantine spot set up all ready to go, which is standard procedure. And it should be standard procedure for anyone getting a new animal anyways. And, I mean, I've had enough experience with them where I'm not worried about it. I mean, I know how to, not touch that animal and then come directly into the snake room and touch another animal.
Right.
It's just being smart about it.
So speaking of that, so naturally I thought, I was like, damn, I spoke to a bunch of people about what to do, but I talked to Kagan quite a bit and she was a huge help because she has had the experience of working at a facility where mites, a mite outbreak in a collection of massive snakes, like that's hard to get under control. And so I made the switch over from, I had a couple cans of Prevenamite, but I went ahead and just bought the permethrin and did a solution, and then also used the good old test strips. Not these mammoth size in every enclosure, but what's crazy is that I had it on a clutch that I'm consigning, and I only found them on like 4 or 5 snakes that were in the hatchling rack. And the mites did not spread anywhere else over the last month. I got them killed very quickly. Not a single snake has soaked. I haven't seen a single mite, but the whole cross contamination, like you're talking about, like don't go touch that snake, bro. It has made it so stressful because you got to work with that clutch on a different day than the rest of the animals. I bought different tools for all these animals. I am treating every animal. And it is, I mean, I can honestly say in the last like 3 weeks, I've probably spent like 7 days going to bed before midnight, but staying up typically until 1 or 2 in the morning, waking up at 5:40 the next day for work to get everything under control. And it's been stressful, but I will say the fact that my other clutches that are in the same hatchling rack have not had a single mite on them, I'm doing something right.
And there's a ton of different methods that you can use. If you're not comfortable with one method, don't do it. Try something else. I've heard people using the Nix lice stuff to treat mites. I've heard of people using a certain brand of Frontline to treat mites.
They don't make it anymore, unfortunately.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I did see that. I personally prefer the permethrin and using the hot shot pest strips. Now, like you were saying, it's really, really important that you use an appropriately sized piece of that pest strip for an enclosure. If you're putting, a chunk of pest strip this size in a hatchling 6-quart tub, that is not going to go well for the animal. That's just too much for it. But if you're, I think for a hatchling 6-quart tub, I'm using a piece of pest strip that's about the size of my pinky nail, And that's all it takes for something that size. So it's
Yeah.
all about just the size for that animal.
Oh,
Well, and when I was over there, Lucas, I mean, I haven't dealt with mites myself yet. But the first thing I asked was, why is there cheese in their enclosure?
right. because he saw the pest strips. He's like, what, is that what the pest strip is?
Yeah, but I mean, even when I was over there, I didn't. We pulled open a handful of different enclosures that day, and I was careful not to touch any of my animals when I got home. But I didn't see a single mite when I was there.
Yeah, they
No.
haven't
So
spread
I don't know if
at all.
did you see any in the rack that you were dealing with them in after I
There-
had left?
There was only one baby from that clutch that, the 5 had them. There was only one that was soaking. It was in shed as well. And so typically when a snake is in shed with mites, that's their way of like having a layer of skin so that the mites aren't actually like getting to their blood source and it's drowning them.
Mm-hmm.
Ever since that snake is shed, I even looked at the water bowl. There were no mites in there. And so, no, ever since that one shed, I've gone through and, 2 or 3 full out cleans and permethrin sprays since you left 2 weeks ago. And I have not seen a mite. Now I'm going to continuously treat for another 30 days
Yes.
because their eggs typically,
The
and
life
to be-
cycle.
so we think that like most people say their life cycle of eggs is 30 days, right?
Mhm.
But the clutch that I received on consignment, I had quarantined for 7 weeks without seeing a single one. And it wasn't until 5 days after I finally introduced them into my collection, almost 2 months after, boom, mites. I was like, you got to be shitting me. So,
Mhm.
so 30 days might be the standard, but I can say for a freaking fact that it can be way longer than 30 days.
Yep, it absolutely can. That's the key thing. Is just don't stop treating once you don't see them anymore, because those eggs can absolutely hatch and
Right.
continue that cycle. Now, luckily, do you have carpet in that bedroom?
In the
In the
quarantine room?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's I hate carpet when it comes to mites, because like they can really get in the fibers of the carpet and hide, because like normally if you're just like spraying down an enclosure or in a room where you have a concrete floor or a linoleum floor or whatever, there's not anywhere for them to really hide in and you can spray them down. But man, with carpet, they can hide in there, and that it's just a pain in the butt.
Yeah. And you want to know what the fun part about all this was, is I panicked. Again, I haven't seen a lot of experience with bites in person. I've only had one outbreak, but it just so happened at the same damn time that I found mites on one snake at the time.
Oh,
The only time I've ever gotten a shipment of aspen from the source
Yes.
that I get my aspen from, I had wood mites.
wood mites.
So,
Yep.
so literally within the same week, I thought they had already spread to like my bigger snakes, because I was seeing these little like white, and some of them were a little brown around the water bowl. But I was like, why is the snake not soaking? Why is the snake unbothered? And then finally, after like Googling pictures and like doing some research, after like panicking and taking everything off of aspen and spraying down all those enclosures like crazy, and like almost going manic, realized they were wood mites. So
I remember you texting me being like, I hate this so much.
yeah,
What the fuck are these?
yeah. But I will say, like, silver lining in all of this was the speed of being able to like get everything like not spread, under control, and then the experience in and of itself. Now I know what I'm going into if it ever happens again. Not if, but more than likely when. That I'm now prepared. I just wasn't prepared before. Like, it wasn't something that had happened to me with that size of collection.
Right. And for those of you that go to shows and take your animals to shows to sell them, that's another place that you could potentially pick up mites, because if another vendor brings in animals that have mites on them, there's the potentiality that those mites could transfer to your animals, whether that be by a customer touching that animal and coming and touching yours, which is why, if I'm ever vending, I like to keep a little hand sanny, do a little hand sanny, wipe down with your hands before touching the animals on your table.
Even at then, there's still a risk.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, and it's a numbers game. I mean, with as many vendors are at some of these big shows, you're bound to have someone with mites at the show.
Hmm.
It's
Yeah.
just
I'm
an
glad
odds
that a
thing.
lot of
So
shows.
it's how close are you to that booth?
I'm glad that a lot of shows discourage, even though it's really fun to see people bring in their own pets to shows. I'm glad that a lot of shows discourage it because that's just one more venue, whether it be that that person could potentially bring mites in with that animal that they love so much, or that animal that they're bringing could get mites from coming to that show.
Or even something I saw even at Arlington that just, it's just an old school thing, I think. But I saw a guy who was really stoked on his new boa purchase, and he was just carrying it around the
Mhm.
show and the auction and everywhere he could all day around his neck. And yeah, it's fun to have a snake around your neck, but
I disagree
what are
with
we
that.
risking here and for what?
No, I agree. But yeah, I mean, I guess like if I could really stop being assholes to people who have mites. It's not a big deal. Everyone's gonna get them if you have a sizable collection. Even if you don't and you're getting your first animal, you might end up with mites.
Mhm.
Mites have always been a part of the hobby. You know, judge those that aren't openly discussing that they have it and aren't letting customers know, and they are knowingly sending animals out with mites and not letting them know.
Mhm.
That's where I can draw the line and say that's not okay. But mites at the end of the day happen, and again, I learned my lesson. My whole thing was like, 30-day egg cycle. I kept them in there for like another 2-3 weeks after that just to be safe, and I was good to go. And then
Mhm.
I put them in, and literally 5 days later. So yeah, I'm not gonna believe the 30-day life cycle anymore. I'm gonna probably now stick to a 2-month quarantine period for any consignment animals, and even longer if I can. And I would have done longer. The issue was that I had a lot of babies from that clutch that were pushing,
Mhm.
and it was not just like one, it was a bunch, and I was even dropping the temperatures, and I was like, you know what, I haven't seen mites. I'm gonna just put them in the larger rack in the garage, and in the ambient, just in case it is a temperature fluctuation thing. And they stopped pushing, but
Mhm.
I then saw mites. But again, it hasn't touched a single one of my snakes in the same rack and in the rest of the garage. So that's the use a separate hook for those animals.
Mhm.
Even use a separate bottle spray, because if you handle one to put it into a soak. Oh, by the way, and every time I took them out, I would put them in a iodine soak.
Mhm. Oh, yeah, that's another
Um,
thing you can do. Definitely is iodine
yeah,
soak.
yeah.
And
So
for those that haven't dealt with mites before or are wondering, does my animal have mites? Some of the areas that mites like to congregate are right around the eyes. So they really like getting kind of in between the scales around the eyes, in the heat pits. That's, right in those little nooks and crannies of the
that's when
face.
it gets bad.
Yeah. Well, that's like if you have a really dark snake,
That's how you can tell.
it's kind of hard to see if you're just like looking, like if you have a really dark golden child, it's really hard to see him like just on the back, but the face is typically is a little bit lighter, so you might notice like a little bit of swelling of that scaling around the eyes
Right.
too.
And how I know I caught them really early, right when the eggs hatch, is because even the ones that had mites, I only could tell because they were soaking and I would see the dead ones on the bottom.
Hmm.
Never saw one crawling on a snake.
Hmm. Good, I'm glad you caught it early.
I'm just
I
saying.
think because you acted quickly as soon as you saw it, it prevented a bad spreading of it. I'm just thankful that it didn't end up being that you touched an animal in that rack and then went down to your garage.
Uh, no, I mean that those animals were in
Oh,
the garage already when I found out I had mites.
oh, snap!
in the same hatchling rack as my other
Panic button.
hatchlings.
I understand now. Okay,
Panic, yeah. No,
yeah.
if they were upstairs, I would have been chill. Like, there's no reason for me to go manic downstairs in the garage. But no, they were in the garage when I found out for the first. Yeah, I wouldn't have moved them into the garage if I'd seen them. They were upstairs for 7 weeks without them.
Gotcha. Put into that rack downstairs, and then 5 days later.
5 days later, saw them, and then and that's why I'm saying it's impressive that like none of my collection,
Mm-hmm.
I haven't seen a single other snake soaking, or or have them.
Yeah.
So I freaking set everything on fire.
You did everything you were supposed to do, Lucas, and it paid off.
Oh, one last tip. If you get the permethrin mix, get like one of those little pest control little pump spray things that like you look
misters.
legit. Right, the misters. Like $15 on Amazon. But one thing that Kagan recommended to do that I think really stopped potential spreading, sprayed the exterior, all 4 sides of every enclosure, sprayed it on the floor of the garage. Like I was just like, I sprayed it on anywhere that there is a barrier that a mite could have, from my fan, just taken off and latched into another enclosure,
Right.
or could have walked over and touched. So yeah, when I saw it, the first thing I did was separate the baby rack. I moved it forward so that it wasn't touching anything else.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, not just the substrate in the tub, but even into the rack where the tubs sit as well.
Yeah, huge help. Thanks for that, by the way.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. It's
all right.
not a big deal, man. People shouldn't see it as such.
No, I agree. And there's always a learning lesson from it. Now, I'm sure probably there's a few people that are going to come after me for using pest strips or spraying permethrin all over the garage, and they're going to say you're killing your animals, and I'll let you know in a couple months if any of them die.
Like I said, it's the crabs of the reptile industry. Go get your prescription and take care of it.
Right.
So there is definitely a very specific mix of the solution that you have to follow. You don't want to mix it too heavy. I sent the very specific ratio to Lucas in a text. But this is something that people spray chickens, cows, dogs, cats with. And as long as it's in the correct, maybe not babies.
Oh shit!
As long as it's in the correct ratio, it's not going to hurt that animal. I mean, when I had an issue about a year ago-ish now, I could even spray not on the head or the neck. I didn't want it anywhere in their respiratory area, but you can spray the bodies of the adults.
Larger snakes. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Don't
Larger
do that with babies.
Yep.
All right. I think we covered a huge range of topics. So before we wrap,
one last question.
Oh, go for it.
And it's for Nathan. Have you ever seen a panda in person before?
I think the Utah Hogle Zoo used to have pandas.
Yeah.
But it's been a while. Why?
So supposedly at the end of this year, all of the pandas in the United States are going back to China. So all of the pandas that we have currently in captive programs in zoos in the U.S. are on loan. And
we're doing breeder loans with China, everyone. I just want to say that. It's worse than doing a breeder loan than Samson.
It's been a somewhat successful breeder loan, right? Like there's been U.S. captive born pandas.
Well, supposedly, either the Smithsonian is unable to negotiate a re-up of that contract, or something's going on where they're unable to.
It's not an AZAA thing.
I'm not sure.
Nope. So it says here, USA Today say goodbye to pandas. All black and white bears on U.S. soil set to return to China.
Mm-hmm.
It's heartbreaking.
It is very heartbreaking. So if, those of you listening, if you haven't seen a panda in person before, this might be your last chance to see them for who knows how long.
Go steal one.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure our Utah Hogle Zoo doesn't have pandas anymore, but they're doing a breeding partnership with the elephants. So I went and saw the elephants before they took their final journey.
Yeah.
So China calls this the panda diplomacy, and for decades China has loaned pandas to other countries in hopes that it will build ties with said countries. Yeah, China, because that's what we want to. Your pandas are going to do it. Jeez. But yeah, they're all going back.
I just thought it would be cool.
We did just talk about how much we're going to miss the pandas, so
yeah.
Did
I just thought it would be
something,
cool, like
Lucas.
if Aspen could like go to the zoo and get a picture beside the pandas before they're gone, then you could show her when you're older. Look, Aspen, she with the pandas.
They were real, I swear.
Yeah.
He's been wanting to go to Beijing anyway.
Oh, geez. My sister-in-law lived in China right during the pandemic outbreak and said some very interesting things about being there. But anyways, was very lucky she was able to escape to Japan before she was able to get a ride here, or else she would have been stuck there for 2 years.
Oh my gosh. Holy cow.
Yeah. But Patreon members, I don't think we've talked about you guys. Always appreciating you guys. We had an awesome live just like a couple hours before we recorded this. And if you guys do want to join our Patreon, that link is right down below, Patreon/TheReticLounge. And as always, shout out to our sponsors. Appreciate all your support. Nathan, you got anything else before we wrap up?
No, we're like 100 or so subscribers away. So hit that subscriber button. Let's give away some shit already.
Yeah.
Like we have some cool stuff from VivTech that we want to give you guys. So subscribe. Let's give it away.
You want to know what I hope happens, because it's taken so long to hit 1K, and this is so petty of me. But my Lab Exotics, like my personal, is subscribed. I hope I win it. Okay.
I think my Nathan Katz and Katz Reptiles is subscribed as well. So
two entries.
we're gonna be duking it out. No, it's only one account. It's only one account.
Oh, okay.
Not trying to fluff our numbers that much.
Kagan, this was an awesome first episode of this new segment. We're excited to have you on more often to just talk retics.
Ticks?
Yeah, talk ticks. Ticks. Talk ticks.
TikTok talk ticks.
Yeah.
I really enjoyed it too. I mean, honestly, like one of my favorite things is just talking about snakes, and I don't really get to do that very often. So this is fantastic. I appreciate you guys letting me chat your ears off with my little schedule.
I'm excited. Keep writing the notes, because me and Nathan don't.
Yeah, I was gonna say sometimes Lucas and I need this.
Yeah. Absolutely. But appreciate you guys for listening. Hopefully you enjoyed. Drop some comments down below. Give us any topics that you want us to talk about during the TikTok segment.